we will get started in just a moment. Good morning and happy Wednesday. We are at Hump Day, so we're almost there to the end of the week. We're going to go ahead and get started. And just a kind of housekeeping item that I was just informed of prior to this meeting. So there is a new microphone system that I really love. And so I just want to kind of explain it. So unfortunately, the people that are sitting at the table, this does not apply to you. But for those that are sitting up here, just as an FYI, when you touch the button to speak, it will pop up on my screen as the chairperson, and so I will approve you to speak. And so I think I like it because it's helpful for me to kind of keep track of which person is first in the queue or press first to make a comment, so on and so forth. So just know that even if you press the button, I will still have to approve the mic to actually turn on. So FYI. So housekeeping item, I like it. I'm a fan of it, so we'll see how it works. I think they said that this might be one of the first times that it's actually being used. So there may be bugs or kinks. We'll see. So we'll see what happens. All right. So let's go ahead. For the interest of time, let's go ahead and get started with today's meeting. And so first, I want to start with attendance. Liz Mallard.
Present, no conflict.
Golly. Try it again.
Present, no conflict.
Try now.
Present, no conflict.
There we go.
Do I still hit it again?
I still like it. I just need to, yeah, anyways.
I'm here.
Jamie Villegas. Not remote either? Okay. Dr. Zendria Inslee.
Present, no conflict.
India Pungarcher.
Present, no conflict.
Drew Freeman.
Present, no conflict.
Deanna Allen Robb. Yeah, for those at the table, you just push the button and you're good. Yeah.
Officially present, no conflict.
Great. Michelle Southard.
Present, no conflict.
Andrea Hancock. Meredith Jolin.
Present, no conflict.
David Langle Martin.
Present. I work for a COC-funded organization.
H.D. Stovall.
Present, I work for an ARPA-funded agency.
Catherine Knowles. Alyssa Fernandez.
Present. Conflict due to working for a COC-funded agency.
Thank you. Rico X, present, no conflict. Ashley Horton. Lizzie Goddard.
Present, no conflict.
Jaha Martin.
Present, no conflict.
Angie Lawless.
Present, no conflict.
Councilman John Rutherford.
Present, no conflict.
Councilwoman Erin Evans.
Present, no conflict.
And Councilman Jacob Cooper.
Present, no conflict.
All right. And point of privilege, just wanted to welcome our two new councilpersons, so Councilwoman Evans and Councilman Coopin. Welcome back, Councilman Rutherford. We were thinking that there was going to be just like completely new slate, so we're grateful that there was at least like one carryover from the last couple of years. And he told me earlier, he was like, I was thinking I wasn't going to be here again. So welcome, look forward to working with you all this year and for the next couple of years.
Clarify, I also work for a COC-funded agency.
Thank you, Drew. At this time, we want to take a moment to remember those that have passed due to homelessness. And so we have Ray Stevens, Dennis Ledford, James Lloyd Clark, James Earl King, Ricky Hudgens, Edward Parsons, Raymond Bain. Let's take a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, we have the minutes that have been sent and submitted to you all. Are there any corrections? Is there a motion for, okay?
Mr. Chair, my comments under Unified Housing Strategy were seeking to find a way to move forward despite limitations. I'm not sure that was captured in these minutes.
Can we incorporate that into to reflect? Any other corrections or additions? Is there a motion to approve those minutes with the admission of HG's comment.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the inclusion of HG Stovall's comment, say aye. Aye. Any objections? All right. It has been approved. There are, just for the record, there are no public comments, so we will move forward with the Coordinated Entry Policies and Procedures Manual. If you all remember, it was briefly brought up last meeting. And so we now want to have a little more substantive conversation and potentially approve the new manual. So if we, is Grant here? Oh, there he is. I didn't see you. And Deshaun, if you all could come up.
Good morning. Great. Good to see everyone again this month. I want to spend any time answering questions, but I first wanted to just make a few comments, and then we'll open the floor to any conversation or discussion. So I want to again start by thanking everyone who has put hours of time into creating a strong document that supports the great work of our community. One of the great things about the continuum of care model is that it is structured so that the work of addressing and ending homelessness is the responsibility of the entire community, not just an individual person or agency. It allows for a more inclusive, collaborative, and equitable process, one that shares power rather than consolidating it. This CE Policies and Procedures document is a living document, like all the other documents this body has approved that come through work in the committees. To not be responsive and improve the way we operate would be a disservice, even when it requires changing processes. I know in front of you, you also have a document that was submitted at the end of business yesterday, attempting to possibly get this body to alter the normal operating procedures. I wasn't copied on this email, but I was made aware of it late yesterday, and so just wanted to make a few comments related to that document. And also, I want to ultimately encourage this body to approve the draft CE Policies and Procedures that has been thoroughly discussed and unanimously approved for approval by the CE Oversight Committee. We as co-chairs in the committee worked hard to ensure we were operating within our scope, especially as it related to the conversation around encampment prioritization. It was not in our purview to make broad commentary or changes to the overall outdoor homelessness strategy, but we did feel it necessary to address the pieces that intersected with our work and how the CE process was used or was not used during that process. The outdoor homelessness strategy was created before our committee was formed, and thus no committee existed to incorporate these type of pieces to the process until now. We have multiple members of our committee who are also on the SWAP committee, which the outdoor homelessness strategy came out of. And we also had other members of the SWAP committee who are involved in revisions to the outdoor homelessness strategy who are present at discussions on this topic. While OHS staff did raise some concerns during the discussion related to the changes to prioritization and process related to the encampments, nothing raised was able to clearly show how this new process would either go against specific HUD guidance or hinder our ability as a community to respond to arising needs. This process creates stronger checks on the process, and ultimately, I do believe that this would help to combat any claims that the community was not involved, because there would be a committee approval of the decision and on the allocation of resources. I also want to note that I do find the recommendation to limit the PMP to only COC-funded programs concerning, especially as the role of the CE lead should be to grow and strengthen the CE process and to increase the resources allocated through it, something as a community we've spent years doing since our community implemented coordinated entry. Speaking specifically to the language that's outlined in the box on the document for recommendations for CE policy and procedures, The majority of this language functions nearly identical to the language included in the proposed draft. The important distinction is in the first line that gives full unilateral discretion on the changes to the CE lead without any oversight, and the involvement of the committee is secondary. This type of process requires two important things: trust and a proven track record showing appropriate discretion and action. And I believe both are of concern here, and thus why I believe the added step in the process is crucial. During the policy review process, this discretion was a topic of discussion, and the committee unanimously agreed that oversight of CE changes must be reviewed by the committee and also by the community. This change was supported by members of the CE lead during our discussion, and at the time, no concerns were raised about issues with this language. A couple just last comments, and then I would love to answer any questions. As I already referenced last month and earlier today, the added language does not contradict the outdoor homelessness strategy, but rather adds to and strengthens. And like we have historically done at times when we adjust any COC documents, like when the outdoor homelessness strategy was initially created, the important next steps are always to work collaboratively with other committees to add language to ensure greater consistency and cohesion. The new language does not limit the ability for OHS to communicate with encampment residents first, just that when there is a desire to allocate CE resources towards an encampment closure, that they would follow the outline process. Encampments are but one segment of our outdoor homelessness population in Nashville. All people living outdoors are deserving of housing, resources, and support, and for there to be an equitable distribution of resources, not just dependent on the geographic location someone is sleeping. And I also just want to note that the prioritization language in this process, while we focus a lot on encampment, is meant for any change to any sort of prioritization. So if we identify that there might be a high risk or high need population that we want to adjust, we would be able to do that with this process and then ultimately make that adjustment pretty quickly and then come back at the next revision to potentially make that a permanent change in our policies and procedures. So I appreciate all your time and consideration on this, and just want to open up to any questions or comments that folks might have.
Any comments, questions?
Just wanted to get maybe a point of clarification in terms, are you referencing the recommendation?
Yeah, you're not on the mic.
Push the button. It is. Okay, I don't know what else to do. Can't. Testing. Okay, so I just wanted to get a point of clarification to start. Are you referencing this document? Okay, and, okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was the document you were referencing. And then I guess I did have a question about the proposed encampment prioritization that you're saying is, I guess, in opposition to what this proposes. Looking at this and seeing the amount of people that it does involve in terms of the time frame. So I guess my question would be, since you are opposed to this, or the committee is that this was talking about in instances of an emergency, and I may have missed it. I do not see where there is a time frame around gathering this level of people. And when there is an emergent situation, are we prioritizing the need for all of these people to meet versus the need of the folks in the conditions? And I'm sorry, I'm referencing page 18 under encampment prioritization, where it goes into talking about the number of people who would be needed to convene, and also that the convening would be at the proposal from the CE lead. And it does not, and I may have missed that, where it also describes what would be the qualifications of the CE lead outside of volunteerism.
So we actually discussed that during our committee meetings about when there is an emergency and situations like that. And one of the things we discuss is being able to move quickly and have an ad hoc meeting and come together when there is emergencies like that. And every member of the committee was in agreement to be able to do that and move quickly when there are emergencies. And the scope of this is a limitation to CE resources, right? So the CE lead would be able to move in emergencies, but not be able to utilize CE resources to assist with that. So if there were outside funding that is available to use to help those individuals, then they would be able to do that. But if there was an expectation of using CE resources to help those individuals in an emergency, we would need to go through the CE Oversight Committee. But I will say that the committee was in agreement to have emergency meetings to meet if there was something like that. And we also discussed that there have not been situations where things have had to move so quickly that the committee would not be able to meet within a week's notice. Typically, what we have seen is that in those situations, we've had at least a week to be able to come together to have those discussions. So
Thank you for that. So I guess if this were to remain, one of the things that I would have is that's institutional knowledge. When it's not written, no one else would understand who's not in the room, such as myself. And so I would just wonder if that could be a way that would be addressed and implemented if we are really going to move forward with this. The second piece would be, since as we're moving as a community and looking at a coordinated entry system versus just the process, that even if we look at CE resources, I guess my other explanation or question for clarification is that if we are trying to utilize people through HMIS to best triage them, and because we have learned it's a more trauma-informed way, is that also what you are considering CE resources, or is that minimized in terms of what you're referencing as funding or agencies? And how is that defined in this manual?
Could you clarify a little bit on what you were just saying?
So my understanding from what you all have on here, it says that if they don't use CE resources. My question would be, how is CE resources defined? If the goal as a community is to really look at coordinated entry as the process, since it really is more trauma-informed for the individual, not to be repetitive in their story, and then we would be working together to have collective documentation, all of those things. My mind thinks that that's a part of the CE. However, I could be wrong, and we could be referencing agencies that have funding. I guess, so my question would be for clarification, what is defined as CE resources, and is that clearly defined within this manual? As we talk about, that would be the desire that the committee wants to manage.
I appreciate that question, and I think that's great clarification. I think that's something that came up even in our last meeting, was ensuring that when we talk about CE resources, that we're defining that, and we talked about ensuring that we have a solid inventory and list of what we mean when we say that. And so that's something that the committee is committed to working on. In the document, there are listed as potential resources that are referred through coordinated entry. And so when we're talking about outside resources, just an example, say the mayor's office decided that they wanted to allocate some of their own resources towards this process, we have no jurisdiction or say over anything like that. But anything that would typically go through the coordinated entry process would be involved in this.
Last question. So for instance, just hypothetically, there's a veteran encampment, we're working with the veterans by name, and it's through the CE, this entire committee, and everyone would need to get together, and it would be at the discretion of the CE lead, even though it's more of a specified population, according to this manual.
So you're saying if
Recommendation.
there is a encampment that a housing surge is wanting to be, or any sort of resource they want to be utilized towards, outside of our typical prioritization process at identifying individuals for resources?
Well, I'm saying if it's a specified population, that would not be, but it would still be within what are some of these resources, because on part of your resources, it would say designated Section 8 vouchers.
Yeah, I guess I'm still not understanding the clarification in your question.
So it's not, so what I'm asking is, what I'm saying is I'm wondering if this limits things. So for instance, we get a encampment that's there and it's a specified population, and I'm just saying, for example, it's a veterans group. And the city gets wind of it, OHS, and then they want to gather together and to begin to use this process. or the outdoor strategy, just because it is evidence-based as a way of doing so. So I'm just making sure I understand that according to this, then, we would still convene according to this process with all of these people who may not be the best experts in this population.
I would say if it's outside of our already determined CE prioritization and process, then yes. And to me, it's not about not understanding and being experts in a specific population, but ensuring that as a community, we're following a process that we've determined is best. And so I would say what you're describing, I guess, is that outside of what is typically done as far as connecting veterans?
Resources would look a little bit different.
Connecting veterans to resources?
So what I'm saying is that it would exclude, how would you connect those resources? What I'm saying is going on, whether it's family, whatever, I don't know who all's on the team. So if we do this, how would you broaden that to be more flexible is my recommendation as we look at this.
Sure. And I would say we do have a pretty widespread representation of most all populations on the committee that we would then hope. And if there was a specific expertise or population that needed to be considered in a process, then of course we would want to invite those folks to the table to be a part of the discussion and not try to assume any expertise that we did not hold.
I will add to that just a little bit. So specifically when we were discussing the encampment prioritization, we knew that we were not absolutely the best experts to have that conversation. So we invited members of the SWAP committee who were a part of that conversation to join and be there to add their expertise, right? And so we've had a proven track record of making sure that the experts are in the room to be a part of that conversation.
As I'm looking at this, it does reference a few access points within CE, youth and adults, veterans, survivors of domestic violence. I would say one thing that I do note there, possibly as a recommendation is, I don't know, maybe with like immigrant populations, but there is some reference of subpopulations and access points that are already identified in there.
I will say that we did discuss having those access points in the policies and procedures because they obviously do change. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we discussed was having that be a living document on the hub so that people could see that in real time as those things change.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Oh, great. So, several conversations around encampment, it's always a tense moment. The unfortunate piece is our most vulnerable population is the people that live outside that we need to address. This policy and procedure was really to address that population. HUD TA, all of our technical advisors have asked us to make sure to stand firm on this language. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. And in working with our coordinated entry team, we just wanted to have our comments on record. We had robust conversations within the CE committee that's not reflected anywhere in here. So this is a way that it's reflected the recommendations that our department was making. I think also as it goes back to CE resources versus Metro resources versus veterans, VASH resources. I think that's kind of what Jaha was getting at. There are CE resources that are designated for veterans that don't necessarily go through CE. The VA makes the decisions on those resources. So I think that's important to note. And Dr. Talley, I don't know if she wants to come to the mic just to kind of discuss some of her recommendations. You all have this in front of you. We don't have to read it to you. I think that you'll see the very first 4 or 3 bullet points there when we're talking about separating out. And I think Grant and Deshaun said something totally opposite of each other. Grant saying it should be all-inclusive, because what we are trying to do is get all resources to kind of go through that CE process, not so much separated out. And I think Deshaun spoke a little bit more on if it's not funding that's dedicated to CE. So I just want to make sure that we are clear. There's agencies here. This is not just about Metro. There's agencies here that have other funding that does not funnel through CE and through the CE process. So, and probably never will, right? Just because of the funding source and the dedication of those funding sources. So that's one. I think that's why Dr. Talley wanted to draft this document, just to have it on record what Metro's decision would be as far as it relates to funding. Do I hit it off?
Am I good? Sweet. First, I do want to thank the CE Oversight Committee and everybody who was involved in that, all the hard work, because we have spent so many hours and reading and rereading and redrafting. So I want to make sure that's very clear that everybody was in this to come up with the best CE process possible. I think our goal as a team overall is to have the best CE lead in the country. Like, that is what we're working toward. That is what we're striving towards. So I think having these discussions and going back and forth are really fruitful and beneficial, so everybody fully understands what the CE process is, because I think there still are some misunderstandings in the community. It shows up every day in my job. So I think having a really clear document that defines all of this is really important. So drafting this recommendations for the CE policies and procedures, really just wanted to make sure that HPC was aware of where, like, the two most, I don't want to use the word contentious, but like the most discussion that came about were these two paragraphs. One of just giving CE lead a little bit of leeway in emergency situations where we are able to deal with the health, safety, and really the health and safety of our community, so we can act quickly. These are not meant to be permanent changes whatsoever, but if we need to act, we need to have a little bit of leeway to do that. We're not acting, or we don't want to have any sort of like power grab, anything like that. This is really just so we can help save someone if they need saving that day. The other part is there's a couple of amendments we wanted to make. So talking about the, like, this policy is applied to the COC funded programs, and then also for encampment prioritization, including that word temporarily prioritized, because this is not a permanent change. So when we are doing those encampment surges, like, this is a temporary thing. This is, so once that is over, the people who are involved with that, they're still not prioritized for everything else. So I think that's a change that might be helpful to some of that wording. And then really just want to make sure you all have the opportunity to consider all of this in this document before voting.
Thank you. I have a point of order. I'm just a little bit concerned and confused about procedure right now. So we're on an agenda item that is the committee chairs presenting, and I just have a little bit of concern about, basically OHS calling up people and kind of running the meeting. If that's in the purview of someone on the committee, or like the chair or vice chair wants to like call on OHS to ask them clarifying questions or get comments, I think that that's one thing, but I'm just a little bit concerned on, how the agenda was set, and yes, just who the meeting is for and how it's being run. So I just like a point of order to clarify, our agenda item right now is this presentation from committee chairs, and I feel like it's being taken over right now.
Yeah, so to answer that directly, as the agenda was set, it was to offer the presentation, and then I think it was, this added document was just submitted for the record, and I think that the comments were just explaining that document for the record, whether the committee, whether the council wants to incorporate that or not is within the full responsibility of the council to do that. But that was just the reason why it was just submitted for the record.
I just have concern that we're getting to a point where we have this document submitted by the committee, and now we're almost having like a couple counter like presentations of this document that's directly in conflict with this document, and procedurally, I'm just a little bit concerned.
Yeah, fair comment. Any other comments that you have, Dr. Solly?
No, I appreciate your time. I just wanted to briefly explain this document, so we have our recommendations on note. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right. I think HG.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of thoughts following up on Ms. Martin's thought. We do not have a definition of emergency in this document. And I've long said that a 45-year running fireworks show is not an emergency for an encampment closure. So I'd like that to be noted and for us to consider what an emergency is. Also, I do see on page 25, there's a reference to the Standards of Care Committee being a part of reviews of these standards. Has that occurred? Okay. I would also call into question the definition of encampment. It is rather loose in this document.
Just a quick note, we did not go in front of the Standards of Care Committee this round for any revisions.
I was also concerned about the emergency line and making sure that we really tighten up what is considered an emergency, natural disaster, fire, things like that, not purchase of like land, those kind of things that we can clearly plan for. I just want to make sure that gets noted.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification maybe for all of us. If on OHS's recommendation, it says CE policies only apply to COC-funded programs. They also apply to ESG. That is a federal requirement. So I think that's important to ensure. And then I think I just, maybe to echo some of my colleagues, I think if there are still conversations or disagreements, should this go back to the committee for further discussion versus kind of being presented with a separate set of recommendations the night before? I think it's a difficult situation for us to be in and be thoughtful about. And then also as someone who has done HUD technical assistance, I'm curious who the expert is we're referring to. I didn't believe Nashville had access to TA for the last year, and I think we're hanging a lot on this person's recommendation, and I would appreciate some transparency on who that is.
I will also agree with that. We have not had the opportunity to review those comments as a committee. So the other committee members have not been able to provide feedback on the recommendations of OHS. And we would love to give them the opportunities to review and provide comments, because we did vote as a committee on the changes that are in the policies and procedures, and this would go in contradiction of the things that we spoke about during our last committee meeting where we voted on this. So I would love the opportunity for us to review as a committee on what these changes would bring about.
So a couple of thoughts as far as emergency and what constitutes an emergency. Our outdoor encampment strategy was drafted not to just address emergencies. It was to be a proactive approach to addressing unsheltered homelessness. So reducing it to just emergencies only really means that we are continuing to do what we've done for the last 10 years, not versus what we've done for the last 3 years. HUD-TA, when they came several rounds, ICF, Cloudburst, I can't name all of them, but all of them said you need an encampment strategy that proactively addresses the unsheltered population and encampment. So just want to make sure as we're moving forward, just like we are making proactive decisions when it relates to single fathers and families, or proactive decisions as it relates to veterans, this is just another population that we should make those proactive decisions for. Also, HUD-TA, we've had cloudbursts within the last year, and then as executive orders or things changed, we continued with some professional fees that we have in order to be able to pay for ongoing, have continuity in that HUD TA in order to be able to have that continuity. So we've paid for ongoing TA. And they've been able to really help provide a lot of insight within the oversight committee, they participated in several of these meetings virtually and looking to be boots on the ground some as well.
I'd like to thank Grant and Deshawn for their spirit of collaboration here. Would you tell us the risks of us tabling this until October?
I would say the main one would be if in between now and then there were a move to utilize CE resources in a way that is counter to the drafted document. If, say, there was purchase of a land that required moving folks from an encampment quickly and wanted to utilize CE resources for that, then I would say if we didn't have this process in place, then that would be one. Again, like, we'd be open to discussing these in committee, but I would say a lot of these things that were already discussions that happened, and so I don't know a lot of additional things that would come out of additional discussions in our committee that is that different from the drafted one that was presented to y'all and voted on. So, yes.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Just for clarification, when I was referring to emergency, that was with the CE lead being able to go outside of their role. And my thought was that in an emergency situation, yes, that would occur. But in prioritizing and being proactive, we would go through the normal prioritization committee, CE. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
I like that question because I think the comments and the conversation alludes to not utilizing that process and skipping to meeting with all these committees and all the groups and getting everyone together. There is a prioritization team. There is a prioritization team that makes proactive decisions on encampments, and that should not be reduced based on CE committees, policies, and procedures.
A prioritization team that hasn't met in over a year, just to make that clarification.
I just wanted to acknowledge that I think this is an opportunity I hope this is an opportunity to have Metro and the COC come together and work through some conflicts here to help us better understand, because I think that when we work together, it's better, and I think there are valid points being heard. So I would like to make a motion that we do table this until October, and that and request that during that time that the parties get together rather than a last minute thing. I think this is very important, and I'm not sure I fully understand both sides. And so with limited time, I would just ask that we table it until October. Defer.
Are we going to respond to Angie's?
Motion?
Yeah. We can do that first. My mic was on for something else, but.
Oh, okay. So we do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? And then we can discuss that. Whoever's mic is red.
Mine is.
That would be me. Did you want to rule on the motion?
Yes. Did you second this?
I did not.
I just wanted to point to Grant. I think that something Director Calvin just said, I saw some nods in not agreement, and so I wanted to see your response to talking about if the outdoor homelessness strategy and prioritization, if that was kind of nixed by the CE policies updates in question.
No, I appreciate that. And this was specifically brought up in committee and discussed, and we have members of the prioritization team on our committee, and nothing in this new language changes anything else in the outdoor homelessness strategy process, as far as how the prioritization team meets, as far as how encampments are identified, as far as how we can be proactive as a community. All it does is strengthen and add to that process to create more community buy-in and more assurance on the allocation of CE resources towards that process. So the idea that this does anything to contradict or minimize or throw away what is already in that strategy, which we were very clear and purposeful to not do, I don't think is accurate.
Yeah, I just want to fly just a little bit higher and just talk about the potential precedents we might be setting, right? I mean, it feels like we're having a committee conversation without the committee being involved. And it's a disagreement within the committee should be worked out before it gets to this level, but it feels like that disagreement has been brought into this level. And I just imagine other committees having that same reaction. And are we going to bring all of that here, or are we going to let the committees do their work and they figure it out, and then we decide on what the committee as a whole has come up with versus all the different viewpoints that was discussed, right? Because I'd love to get some insight into the process of coming up and presenting this document. Was it a vote? Everybody had a chance to speak. Everybody, like, what was that process like? So then at least we have it on record that there was a process that we want to hold tight to.
I'll just say, as a committee, we've worked probably for 6 to 8 months on this document, and 3 of those months at least were dedicated to this specific conversation. So we've had quite a bit of discussion, robust conversation involving the committee members. We brought in SWAP committee members. OHS CE team is and other staff are on those committee meetings. And so it has been a lot of discussion that then brought to eventually a vote, which the committee voted unanimously to recommend for approval to this body.
And OHS had a chance to present their recommendations to the committee, and the committee decided to go with the recommendations that you guys presented to us. Okay.
For some reason, it has me on.
Okay, thank you. I actually just wanted to add something kind of to whatever the outcome is of this discussion related to what happens, when there is conflict in the end related to, from the prioritization team to the CE team becoming involved with this temporary or, authorization or whatever that ends up looking like. When there's conflict between those groups, what then happens? And after looking, I'm not totally sure I understand. And so if that's not referenced in this document, I think there should be something that kind of brings it back to whatever, if it's this governing body, and I don't know what that looks like, but just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
In line with your working now? Working now?
It keeps going to next.
There you go. There you go. We're hot now. Okay. Just from a legal assessment, I've noticed a couple of places in this document where it gives the committee a decision-making power. I don't believe legally that that's permitted. Committees make recommendations to the HPC. So, to the extent that the committee has a recommendation as to prioritization, movements, or adjustments, they can come to their recommendation point, but it has to come back before the HPC, in my opinion. That's your role as the decision maker. And to the extent that may throw a kink in this, I just noticed in a few places on page 18, since someone drew attention to that page earlier, resetting prioritization, the committee may have input and bring a recommendation back to the HPC, but that's how, in my opinion, the ultimate decision should be made.
Thank you. And I appreciate Drew for clarity for the process. One thing I do want to note is OHS does not have a vote in any of the committees or in any of the HPC. So we expressed these concerns and the committee voted, but there was not a vote from OHS. And also was advised to always have our concerns and thoughts on record. Even if the committee votes and goes in a different direction, at least our thoughts, concerns, and comments are noted and on record. And so I think back to Council Lady Evans' point, what's the next step from there?
We're just going to take a couple more comments, and then, and I feel like there were some comments and concerns raised outside of OHS's recommendations that may need to be reconsidered or incorporated. I may be wrong about that, but I'm just going to have a couple more comments, and then we just need to move forward.
Is this to me now? Okay. So I am not a member of the CE Oversight Committee, but I was in attendance at two of the most recent meetings, and I can account for the opportunity to present concerns, which should be on record in the minutes from those meetings, if I'm not correct, not mistaken. There was also a public comment period for this, which would have been another opportunity to put those comments on record. It seems to me this document, the recommendations for CE policies and procedures, is a matter that's not properly before the board. We were not given advance notice of this alternative. The Coordinated Entry Oversight Committee has brought to the board their recommendations that the committee voted on and followed procedure. If there are other issues that need to be addressed, we can make an amendment to those. If there's a specific legal concern, I'd be happy to make that motion now. Otherwise, I'm interested in calling the question. Do we need to make a motion to amend?
I just said before we go to that. This is just asking for a parliamentary procedural order, that there were additional comments that you had already acknowledged that you would take prior to the call of the question. So I'm curious if those have been addressed before we move into the call of the question.
Yeah, there's one more that I see in the queue. Hold on.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting for yours to turn. So as I understand it, the OHS recommendations was created just as a matter of record. And I'm wondering if it was created as a matter of record, why are we talking about it? And really just, is that how that works? That's a question, really.
All right. Let me start back as I understand. You have a committee recommendation for the approval of this manual. That's the matter that doesn't require a second. It's a committee recommendation. He's calling the question, but also proposing an amendment, I believe, consistent with the legal concern. That would be a motion. I don't know. You all can consider OHS's input if you elected to, and if you reviewed it. But aside from that, that's just what it is. It's their concerns that they propose to you all that you get to accept or reject or consider or not consider, in my opinion, okay? So if that puts us where we're at procedurally, I hope it does, because I think he's calling the question, but yet also simultaneously suggesting an amendment. But I'm not clear. I can help with wording for an amendment to the point that I was having concerns with. And your proposal can be amended. You all have that individual input capability pursuant to various motions, provided, you're wanting to move to amend the document as presented.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let me clarify what I'm asking. If there is a specific recommendation to make an adjustment to the language for legal purposes, I'd be happy to motion to amend. If not, then I'm interested in calling the question.
And there may be other locations within the document, but anytime a committee is granted a decision-making or an approval power outside of bringing a recommendation back to this body, that is, I believe, could be a challenged decision and may not have the weight of authority that the HPC's vote would grant to their recommendations. Otherwise, they could implement the manual without even bringing it to you all, and that would be their decision. So it doesn't work that way typically. And to the extent they want to bring a recommendation, and there's not time before your regularly scheduled meeting, we can call or convene a special called meeting of the HPC. And if it were to be an emergency, the HPC can meet with less notice, even a minute's notice, if we can establish a quorum for an emergency decision. So with that background, I think the motion should be that any of the decisions by is it the Coordinated Entry Committee? Is that what the committee is called?
Coordinated Entry Oversight Committee, yes.
Yep, I apologize. The Coordinated Entry Oversight Committee should bring back to the HPC any recommendations about any of the decisions that it makes. And what I would suggest is that a motion be made to amend the document throughout wherever it gave approval power to the committee itself. And I can't go through without a word search to tell you where all that might be. But you could approve it on that contingency taking place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hit it again.
Are we there? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is of my opinion, since a valid legal concern has been raised, that we need to make sure that we address it. And so that's either by amendment here, which we clearly have the ability to do, or by deferral to take the time to address it. And that's up to the body, obviously, on which way to go. But we do need to address it, and I think that's a very valid legal concern that's been raised. And so I don't think we need to go forward either direction without making sure that we address it. And then I have a second part, which is more procedural, that I wanted to address, because I'm not sure if this body operates under any different procedure that I may not be aware of than what the Metro Council operates under. But a statement or comment was made that was then followed by a previous question. And I don't believe that you can do the previous question after after making a comment. You have to do the previous question or make a comment, but you can't do both.
Chair, can I make one comment and then? Just on the legals comment, I would say that, one, just expressing just a little bit of frustration on that this document has been in the hands of this body and Metro Legal for over a month, and that to be able to potentially get that figured out in a committee meeting prior to this. Second, changes to prioritization that have been made previously through the CE lead never come to this body for approval. And so it feels, I understand the concerns, but it feels a little concerning that then our approval then would be required. But I'm open to that suggestion and change to ensure that we're in the legal ramifications, but just wanted to make that clarification and comment.
To the councilperson's point of order, essentially was what it was. The question was presented, and additional comments unrelated to the called question should no longer be permitted until this situation with either an amendment or not is addressed, is where I believe we're at. And as far as legal's review, legal had not been asked to review this document, just to be fair. Thank you.
So based on that, I think there was additional comments after the call to question. So I guess procedurally, I get, because I guess just in the interest of time procedurally, do we, is there a motion one way or the other relative to the recommendation, the recommended document that was presented by the committee?
So I'd like to rescind the call if that's an option here.
That is.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then with that, the way I heard legal's comment is that we can approve this policies and procedures manual with the contingency that any legal issues are adjusted appropriately. I believe the other point that I heard is that if there is a question on a decision that is made that could be challenged by the HPC is what I believe you were implying, but not necessarily that would be an issue, but that it could be open to a legal challenge. That the decision was made by a body that did not have the authority to make that. Is that accurate?
That is my concern. As to the justification for the recommendation that the document, from a legal perspective, be amended. And it would only be on this topic, though, that any authority granted to the committee to make a final decision, we would propose language that brings that issue on a recommendation from the committee back to the HPC for the ultimate decision. And I can't wordsmith that in the context of each sentence where it may occur until I have an opportunity to do that and bring it back to you, just to be fair. And if that changes some other meaning, you're in another, it's that chess match. Just to be clear.
I yield my time to Chairman Winter.
Just reviewing the language, might I suggest that in the paragraph that starts in the event, the circumstances and conditions identified by the CE lead call for a shift in prioritization or allocation of CE resources, the CE lead must engage the CE Oversight Committee for review and potential recommendation for approval to the Homelessness Planning Council. That is on page 18.
Okay, I know if I feel like we're in a tangled web, I'm sure I can only imagine what the public is feeling like. So I just feel like there's a need to kind of summarize what I think I've heard. So it feels like the recommendation that Grant and his committee are providing would still have to incorporate another step now that would bring the recommendation to this body, which could then extend a time period or needs to be written down to Jaha's motion by institutional law, which needs to be documented, right? So there are a lot of, it's not just one piece that has to be moved if we are going to need to bring it back to this committee. So it just feels like we're not, unfortunately, at a point to where we can, to make a motion. So, or make a motion to defer this. I know the risks are there. It's a 30-day risk. Hopefully nothing happens between now and then that we can get this figured out. But I think the committee needs to go back and take the recommendation from legal and look at all the moving parts that would need to happen for it to bring back to this committee. Because then we would have to decide, are we ready to make a decision and gather together within 24 hours, right? So then we have decisions that we need to agree to. So unless I'm understanding that incorrectly.
Yeah, well, there wasn't actually a motion. That was just a comment. I'm looking for a motion so we can move forward. I feel like I feel like we just need a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Yeah. Any motion has been raised. Any seconds? I just want to make sure you.
I second.
Okay. All those that approve, and we'll do a hand raise. All those that approve the motion, please raise your hand. I'm sorry. Discussion for said motion that has been seconded.
My mic's still on. Can I just quickly say something? I can tell like that there's been so much work in this, and I really want to support it so much. And at the same time, if there is something with legal, I want to make sure that we don't end up back here and that we're constantly fighting it, and then we end up in February and we still don't have something that we can actually rely on. So that's why I'm in favor of this. But just as a matter of comment, if it is true that Metro can change prioritization, or the OHS can change prioritization without coming to this body, and that, then the committee has to come to this body, I think those things create lots of mistrust, which then I think make it hard for us all to come together and work together for our main mission. And so that's at the base. I know that we are all sitting here with hearts and we want to help, but we have to find ways, this is outside of my pay grade, but we have to find ways to rebuild that trust. And I think through some things like that, if that difference is being felt, we have to bring it forward so it doesn't feel like there's one member of the committee. And that's no disrespect to OHS, because the hard work that goes into it is incredible. But I don't know the answer to that. So if someone does, I think these meetings will move better and that we can actually get some things accomplished, but we've got to rebuild that.
I would just like to add some comments to the fact that, this document as it presents to you all now is going to be reviewed by the committee again in a few months once the new assessment comes out. And so we will have another opportunity to review these and make sure that it meets the standards of the HPC. And you guys will get another chance to provide any comments and make any changes in just a few months when the new assessment comes out. Because as it stands right now, it talks about VI SPDAT, and we know that that assessment is changing for CE. And so this will be reviewed again by the committee in just a few months when that assessment comes out. So you guys will get a second chance to make any additional changes. And if anything is not working as far as the policies and procedures that we've put in place, we will then have a second chance to make changes and review those as a committee.
Okay, that puts a wrench in everything now, but Jaha.
Which was going to also be my and this is probably going to shock everyone, but you all know I do not believe in dragging feet. I want to honor the work that the committee has done. And I do think at this point we have had an opportunity. I think that we have been advised that we can amend it. What I have heard from the majority is that it's the legal piece. I do have plenty of unrest about this. And so, but that's neither here nor there. I do think at this point, at some point, we as the body, we have to be able to make a decision. And so I just would like for folks to consider that versus necessarily the tabling, whether you're for or against. I think that I want to just honor, like there was comments, this was presented last month. We have had time to review it, and maybe moving forward, we will ensure as part of, for the lead agency, that these documents are given to legal so that we don't have this in the future. But I do want to make sure on record to say I do honor and respect the work that the team has done and that the committee has done, because we do know this is all a lot of work and it's all free work. And so I definitely honor that. And I think as a body, what I've heard from the COC and other folks is that, you know, we kind of hold things up. We don't, well, let me not say we, I will say I. We move at a snail's pace on many things. We keep deferring things. And I don't know how we as a body around here can become better educated about how we can get these things done in a more expeditious manner with building trust and some of the tension that we continue to hold.
Thank you. And with that, I would, I appreciate, I hate to defer the comment, but I just want to have a vote on the table. And then if that fails, then we need to do something else just to kind of keep it moving forward. So with that, for those that are in favor of tabling, please raise your hands. 2. All those opposed? Okay, so the opposition has it. Is there a motion, is there now a motion to approve the recommendation? We got.
With a bias for thoughtful action, I move adoption of this document as a living document that may be amended and refer it to legal for review.
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Any comments on that? All those in favor of approving the document as a living document and consulting with legal as needed, signify by raising their hands. Okay. All those in opposition? All right. So it has been approved with the caveat of it being a living document. I do echo Jahaz's sentiments, and I do really appreciate the hard work of this committee. I will also say, just as a leader, there are sometimes when you mess up, and I just will say that I think that the wrench that was thrown in this was the OHS's recommendation that, to David's point, should have been documented in the minutes. And so I apologize for the confusion that was caused. I think it just threw a wrench in all of this. So I apologize for, as chair, allowing that to happen. And I think in just moving forward, I won't allow that to happen again. So, all right, moving on. I think if in the agenda there is a position that is open for the Barnes Housing Trust Fund Commission. And so just as a context of that, I think that some time ago it was recommended that there be a delegate from this particular body to be on that commission when a seat opened. So I did want to allow a representative from the Barnes Housing Trust Fund to very briefly just kind of share what the position is about. There were a few people that did express interest in serving as a delegate, and we wanted to, as a body, just to make a determination on who would represent this body to serve on the Barnes Housing Trust Fund. So would you like to just very briefly just share what the position is about and go from there?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'm Angie Hubbard, Housing Director with Metro Planning. We staff the Barnes Housing Trust Fund. This body is charged with oversight of the grant program for the preservation and creation of affordable housing. We don't do any service awards. It's all about physical construction or preservation. The Barnes Fund was created in 2011, but the code was updated a couple of years ago to include a provision for a designee from the Homelessness Planning Council. I'm personally and professionally excited about this because the Unified Housing Strategy does acknowledge the role that Barnes Fund can play in development of permanent supportive housing and deeply affordable. And with that, ideally having expertise from someone from this commission who has development knowledge, but can share the position of the HPC and how that intersection between the policies and priorities that this body has and the continuum of care into the Barnes Fund would be really critical in moving our entire ecosystem forward. So we're looking forward. We will do an extensive onboarding process, and our team is available to walk alongside all of our commissioners. So I hope that it was a high-level overview. I can talk much more, but I'll stop.
No, that's perfect. I just wanted to make sure the context was out there, and I think we're very excited to have some representation on that, and I think it also just speaks to some of the broader objectives within the Unified Housing Strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Hubbard, can you tell us about the demographic composition of your current team?
Our team or the commission?
The commission.
The commission in terms of race and ethnicity or professional backgrounds?
All the above and more.
Okay, I don't have all of that in front of me,
Sure.
but we can provide that, but I'm going to go through off the top of mind. We have one African-American, it's 7 members. First of all, one is a council member, and Councilmember Berkeley Allen was recently appointed. Then the other 6, one is an African-American female, we have an Hispanic female, and then the balance are Caucasian.
That concerns me.
Rightly so.
Thank you. And this might be out of order, but I wanted to know if you had a vision for kind of creating the feedback loop back to HPC from whoever is appointed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would envision the delegate or the representative that would serve on this to, when necessary, to bring either observations or insights. So I don't know if that would necessarily be a every meeting type of thing, but definitely by virtue of just this body making a decision to put that person on the as a delegate, my expectation would be that that they would bring pertinent information back to the council, for sure. Okay, so there were actually 3 people that had expressed interest. And I wanted to offer a 1 to 2 minute spiel for those that were interested. And so we had Angie Lawless, who we just did receive that it didn't, her submission didn't make the cut of printing, but she did submit that. Michelle Southern and Lizzie Goddard. So I wanted to give just kind of a few brief moments for each of those individuals, just to kind of give an elevator pitch to the body, and then we can kind of move forward with the determination.
May I correct my response? We have 2 African-American females, 1 Hispanic male.
Thank you, Director Hubbard.
This will be less than any minutes. So the other 2 candidates are very skilled, and I think will fill this role beautifully. I would like to rescind my interest.
Thank you, Michelle. And she did talk with me earlier about that, so I was expecting that. So, Lizzie, you want to give a pitch?
I'll be brief. This piqued my interest, a lot of the work that I do currently. I'm the lead strategic consultant for Community Solutions on their housing systems team. A lot of the work that we do nationally is sitting between affordable development and continuums of care in advancing permanent supportive housing projects, as well as preserving naturally occurring affordable housing with some set-asides that may not be as formal. I'm really passionate about making sure our kind of capital A affordable housing is accessible to the population that we serve with, deep subsidies, breeding funding, and I would be excited and available to kind of be a liaison between this body's priorities and then the opportunities through the fund.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you. Lizzie would do a great job as well. I think Michelle would do a great job. I've spent a lot of time talking to the chair of this commission to try to understand what the role is and what they need, something that I've been passionate about for my entire career. I've worked in real estate and the for-profit side for 20 years, and then I've worked with developers and lots of developers for 20 years. And while I know that here we want to bring the voice of the Homelessness Planning Council, and I think that you guys know that most of you I've sat down individually with, done a lot of work with, Drew and the Safe Haven team, and I feel like I can be a really great balance between what we really need here and also be able to hear the voices of what is needed to get it done on the affordable housing side. So very much love to serve if you think that I could be helpful to you.
Any other thoughts based on that? I think just a point of order, would it be apropos just to have kind of a vote on each person, or working with a motion for one or the other? I'm not.
Well, I think first, at the moment, you have 2 volunteers, but someone needs to nominate
That's what I was.
them. And once they're nominated, if both are nominated, it would be a roll call vote for each one, or one or the other. Is what I would recommend. But I think volunteers, you got to accept their volunteerism.
So with that said, any nominations?
Just my comment in terms of looking at the information before us and individuals having a background to serve on the commission, I think one of the things I'm trying to listen for, try to understand is the how. How is that connection going to be made with the unified housing strategy? How are we going to see the priorities of the HPC be advanced, potentially be advanced with the commission? And I don't know that I've heard that. I know we just gave a 1 to 2 minute spiel, but I'm looking for something I think more specific of how.
You mean from those that were volunteering to do this?
Yes.
Okay. We can get them to respond directly to that. I think that's a fair question.
Sure, happy to respond to that. I know one of the unified housing strategy priorities is to create more permanent supportive housing. I do have a background in doing TA on getting PSH programs stood up, which can be difficult, right? We have our service providers, which is a lot of our work here. We have affordable developers that may not understand the intricacies of the PSH provider and different funding streams. So I think I would be able to kind of represent how our COC grants work as projects are reviewed. I've sat in on the Barnes Fund meetings quite a bit to see kind of what funding rounds, and I think there would be a real opportunity for some expertise on how homelessness, permanent housing programs could align or layer into kind of capital A affordable investments.
Thank you for the question. It's interesting when I've been talking to the person who is rolling off and also to the chairman, what I've heard is that they need someone who can really speak with the developers, because even though that's the business side of it, we have to get these developers brought on board and we have to get them to understand. And we've had a few projects that seem like they should be perfect projects for our mission here, like Shelby House, and it fell apart. And so I have these relationships, and so I'm hoping to be able to bring those relationships to the table to get them to understand our mission and what we need with all of the supportive care around it, and kind of help in that way.
All right, so are there any nominations?
Yes. I would like to nominate Angie Lawless for the Barnes Housing Trust Fund Commissioner, representative of the Homelessness Planning Council.
Any other nominations?
And I'll nominate Lizzie Goddard for the Barnes Housing Trust Fund Commission position.
Okay. So we've had 2 nominations, and so we will just go to a roll call vote. So all those that would like to vote for Angie Lawless, please signify by raising your hands. So we got 1, 2, 3. We have 3 votes in favor of Angie. All those that would like to vote for Lizzie, please signify by raising your hand. All right. So based on that, Lizzie, I think, has been nominated and elected to represent this body. And thank you. And so we will, I think, to the point that was raised earlier, we'll kind of work out the kinks in terms of like what that feedback loop looks like, but very excited that we have been given the opportunity to do that. So thank you very much. In the interest of time, I wanted to offer, I would like to bring Kenna up just to give some updates.
Hello, everyone. I will be quick today. So what you have in front of you, it came in late yesterday. You got it again this morning, but you'll see this new document here. So one of the big things that we are trying to do in the COC meeting is use the Menti system to better kind of gather and solicit information to bring to this body. So today, you don't have to respond to anything because the COC does not meet again until October. So I really just wanted to make sure that you guys saw this document. And just, there's only one that I wanted to point out for you guys to really think about between now and then. But this is kind of what we're gonna try and do in this role moving forward. So the one that had some conversation is on, it would be on the bottom right where it says, should HPC have brief report to general membership agenda? So this one. So that is technically, we talked about like, it's mentioned, I think in the charter, that someone from HPC should present at general membership. I know there typically is someone, like I know Rico goes, but like I said, you do not have to have an answer for that today. Think about it. Obviously, I'm fine to do that, but technically the charter is that I come here to present COC to you, and then someone from HPC goes to the COC meeting to present what you all talk about. And I think that goes to what we've been discussing about how to make sure that our work is more collaborative, that the bodies are talking to each other. So just wanted you to think on that one, because that's one of the, it's probably the quickest one that you guys can go through. But I just wanted you guys to know that and just kind of see this is how we are gathering information to bring to you. And then that way you guys will always have a month in between so I can present it to you. And then the following month you can tell me what you want to say about it. And we are really enjoying the use of Menti in the COC. It's really helping us try and get through some topics. It was a lot of topics this past month. So one of the things that we actually recommended is we'll be voting on topics to make it a little bit easier. Those who were at the COC know I was up there and it was a lot. So we're really working on trying to funnel down information. The other thing that you'll start to notice is, as I said, I don't like reading things that people are already provided. So you have your updates from your committees. One of the biggest changes that we started last month that you will see more of is that we started a survey to go out to all COC committees after they meet. So that way they can specifically, every committee can, there will be questions that ask, what do you want brought to COC general membership? What do you want brought to Homeless Planning Council? What are your updates? So that way this update section is directly from the committee itself. Previously, for those, if you weren't aware, what typically happened is Ms. Raquel takes all the notes, bless her, and she would kind of summarize all those notes and try and pick out what she thought were the kind of the main points of that agenda, and that's what made it onto this document. We met as an all chairs and discussed that we really want to, again, continue to make sure committees are coming forward and their voice is what you're hearing. So that is what is, half of this is from that, half of this is not, because not everybody was able to do the survey. But by next Homeless Planning Council, the updates you get will be directly from the committee chairs, because it's the chair that fills that out. So I know I did mine, so. Yes, so if you skip to on your committee updates and go to Standards of Care Committee, which is me, it's very short, it's very brief. It's directly from me on what specific highlights, and that's what we're trying to bring to you guys to make it easier for you to see what the progress is, see what the updates are. So that's been the biggest thing that we've been working out. Kudos to Rico and Raquel and Liz as we're trying to figure out all of this. And then just in the interest of being super open. So one of the things is that I also have been acting as the primary facilitator of the COC. I cannot run both positions, just being very open and honest here. But that is looking like, right currently I'm the vice facilitator, which means I'm supposed to be the backup facilitator for the COC, and this liaison role is supposed to be my primary. For the last 6 months, I've been doing both. So there will most likely be a switch in that. So that will be brought to the COC next month on kind of me picking which one. Or I'm also down for the COC to pick which one they want me to do since I was nominated for both. So that's probably what I'm going to say is pick which one you want and who you want to do the other one. So just know that I will be here in October. If it continues, then I will be there beyond that, but just voicing my limitations. As Jaha likes to point out, it's free sometimes, so yeah, it's free. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm honest about what I can do, but those are the biggest things I have for you all today. So I hope you guys take some time over this next month to read the questions directly. Again, I know we don't use Menti in here, but it's a way that people are able to anonymously submit and talk about any questions. So these are all directly from people in the community, what they want you to know or questions for you. So unless anyone has a question for me, that's it.
Yeah, I just have an observation, which is I'm a huge fan of Kenna's ability to put her boundaries and make them very clear. And we all need to we all need to follow that model. So I appreciate the honesty in that, because there have been a couple of times she was like, "That's a boundary." I was like, "That's great. I love it." So, thank you.
Sorry, y'all. I do run 2 departments in my actual day job, so I got 12 people to oversee at the same time, so I do my best. But yes, I'm glad to be here to present to you all, and hopefully you like to see the continuation of the comments. And then the only thing, there is a survey that will be coming out, which I do want to highlight that is mentioned. It's been mentioned to you all before, so it should be launching this month. That was being done by the Data Committee, and it was reviewed by the Standards of Care Committee. So that is going to be going out to providers, which will be specifically targeting the strategic plan goal about inventory of supported services. So that was actually going to launch, I think, by the end of this month. We did a trial where we were taking it, so that one will be going out. It is going to be a lengthy survey for those who, we're honest, but we really just want people to take it so that we can really define what kind of outreach we have, what kind of supported services, when is funding ending, and be able to bring that to this body. So, there you go.
Thank you very much. All right. Director Calvin, any updates, brief updates?
I'll go brief. That's it from us. Yeah. Just 3 things I do want to note. One is I'd be remiss if we did not celebrate Preston Bailey, PT. We lost a giant physically and mentally and emotionally in this space. He's worked in recovery space for probably as long as I've been alive. Did not realize he was 70. He looked awesome. So for any of you all that were able to attend his service, I'm sure his family greatly appreciates it. Also, just 2 more quick things, because I know we have a short time. NDOT's working on working through their strategy, Vision Nashville. And so she came to the CLC meeting, was not really able to fully flesh out a lot of the stuff that she's wanting to implement as it relates to the safety, the life, health, safety concerns of our unhoused neighbors. So we're looking to figure out how to either bring her here for a presentation and working with the chair or all chairs meetings, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. We often hear, that how do we get other metro departments actively involved in the work we're doing, especially when it affects the population that we serve. So just want to make sure that we're able to be mindful of bringing her back. Second or third is cold weather shelter. We are in the process, we've been in the process, it never stops, of gearing up for seasonal concerns. As far as the heat response, there was 22 days of a heat response. Last year, cold weather shelter was an all-time high of 46 nights. And so we're looking at that and ordering up and gearing up. We're looking to put out an RFI, like requests for information from our department on other agencies or providers that may be interested. Probably will not be effective in this year, just because we're just 2 months away, and we've been doing a lot to get the building in place on top of funding and other resources in shape for gearing up. You're going to hear a little bit more about all of the other things that are going on from Allison. I'll stop there because I know we got a lot of time.
I have a question for you, April. I have been hearing rumors that Cement Road there's like something going on with Cement Road. Would you be willing to address that?
Am I on? Yeah. So there's a property owner that owns a portion of Cement Plant Road. There's water that owns a portion of Cement Plant Road. I think they're doing some construction there. Just like with any other unsheltered population, our outreach team has been actively involved in that location, doing assessment screenings. What we find often is a lot of times individuals that live in, whether it's an encampment or unsheltered, are not updated in the CE process and policy and procedures. And there's several individuals there that would normally qualify for housing based on their VI-SPDAT and the rankings that they're at. And so we're working closely with the water team, trying to get, I think, Metro Council members actively involved. So there's a lot of work that goes on across. It's not just that location. If I was to bring probably the 5 hot spots of locations, whether it is CSX, whether it is Old Cement Plant Road, whether it's, there's several locations that are bubbling up pretty high. I believe our outreach team discusses this every Wednesday with the large group outreach members, small group outreach members, and then the in-person outreach team outreach meeting that they have as well. So that's discussed every Wednesday to be able to address that with outreach workers that are providing services in those locations. I think back to a point that you made earlier as far as the prioritization team met really early on, first, between January and March, before OTC was noticed. That was a meeting that we had, a couple of meetings that we had about that location. And so what I want to make sure that the outreach team members are doing as they're meeting weekly with the community providers is to ensure that we get the prioritization team back to meeting quarterly as well. Thank you.
So you currently haven't heard that a property was sold and is being reused, that we're going to need to close that camp? I just have heard rumors that it was purchased by a ferry thing and that they were going to be redoing the camp. That is not something that you have heard?
I've not heard anything about the property being sold. I've heard a lot about construction work that needs to happen there and working with the water department on concerns as far as it relates to the water things that are going on over in that area.
Okay, thank you.
It's loud. I'll weigh in on that as well, because that's my district. There have been on and off conversations about Cement Plant Road since I took office. There was some recent conversations based on a property owner that does have property that they intended to secure, but didn't want to secure and just move people around. They engaged with myself, they engaged with homeless services, and so that's a conversation that's ongoing. But, as the person that represents the individuals living there as well, I welcome folks' feedback or concerns to share with me, to bring back to the group that's looking at this and making sure that, this is handled in a trauma-informed and manner that's protecting the folks that live there as well.
Awesome.
Does that work? Okay, great. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm sorry I sound like a frog, but I have a very important update. I tested 3 times and it was negative every time. Just, wow. So y'all know that I'm happy to give a quick update whenever that's possible, but I have something very important to share with you guys because, okay, let's go back to last fall. Remember, COC Builds was a NOFO that dropped, one-time NOFO for construction, acquisition, and rehabilitation of PSH properties. We held a local competition. The PEC chose an applicant. That applicant was Park Center, and Park Center submitted an application. In May, we got notice that there was a new COC Builds NOFO, that the previous one was rescinded. much shorter timeline. The PEC got together, they had a local competition really, really quickly. There were 2 very strong applicants. They asked them to combine, with the primary applicant being Park Center. And that's what happened, and they applied. Okay, notice came on Friday, last Friday, that they were dropping a 3rd COC built NOFO that supersedes both of the previous. And the applications are due this Friday. So a 1-week application period. This is what I'll say, while it still is intended to fund, construction, acquisition, rehabilitation of PSH, the scoring criteria are completely different. NAEH yesterday put out like a blog post about it, but in the past NOFOs, the scoring criteria has been like, tell us about, the programming you'll provide, and you submit a bunch of narrative and they score that. Tell us about the site that you have and there's a lot of narrative and they'll score that. This new NOFO includes no narrative. It includes a series of like maybe 20-ish statements where you answer yes or no. So some of these are like, kind of common programmatic things like, do you provide on-site services? Yes or no, right? Some of these questions, though, don't have anything to do really with the program, and they have more to do with the jurisdiction, and it seems that they are aligned pretty closely with some of the recent executive orders that are not recent, but throughout this year, executive orders. It mirrors a little bit, and we've talked about this, the language and the contracts that have been coming through this year. Because this is such a short timeline, I reached out to the PEC, I reached out to the primary applicant. There were many partners that were involved in the application, and ultimately the primary applicant decided that they would not move forward on an application. And so, here we are. It is a requirement in the NOFO that the application must be reviewed and selected by the COC for submission under the NOFO. But they did not give sufficient time to do any of that. That's sort of where we are. There's not sufficient time to submit an application for this NOFO. And again, the criteria that they're scoring on, a lot of it is based on things that are completely outside of the program control. They're really based on the jurisdiction that you live in. Okay, so, I say all of this just to say that this NOFO is drastically different from what we've seen in the past. I've never seen a NOFO like this with absolutely no narrative and really not a lot of detail on program. This looks a lot like the COC contracts that have been coming out this year. And I raise this because I think it may be a harbinger of what is to come with the big COC NOFO. HUD announced that it will come later this year. And so we're waiting on it. But this may be an indication of sort of where HUD is heading. So we are very concerned. We at OHS are very concerned about the changes. Of course, we'll work with Metro Legal to move forward, and we will keep the community informed as these sorts of things happen. So I'm happy to take questions. I don't know if I'll have answers, but I can do my best. I would really encourage all of y'all to read the post that NAEH put up yesterday afternoon, because it has a lot of useful context.
Yeah, thank you for that, Allison. And I think just as you indicated at the end, this is probably just a sign of things to come with future NOFOs. So I think just our ability to be as nimble as we possibly can. I mean, I think that's all we can do. So, all right. Last but not least, any HMIS reports, updates? It is great to see you, Hannah. Hey.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. You have your regular report. I'll just note that the previous issue with Nashville Rescue Mission data that kept it off the report has been solved. So going forward, that data will be returned to the report that you can look at.
Not about the HMIS report, but just very quickly. I have a specific request that I would like us to consider, and that is for Metro Legal to review those statements that are contained within the builds NOFO, that if those statements appear in the COC NOFO to potentially drop later this year, kind of what, is there any concession? As Allison indicated, a lot of the statements have nothing to do with the organization, but they have to do with the practices of the jurisdiction or the municipality.
Gotcha. We were getting our signage here together. Which came first, my push of a button or his? We have a newly established internal to the legal department. All the teams are reviewing for questionable conditions in language, not just contracts, but also notice of funding opportunities and other such materials. So that's the front line. This one was flagged by us, and then it went to, we have internal to the Metro Legal Department, a team of 3 attorneys assigned to proactive litigation and challenges. It is primarily once you establish a contractual relationship or have been awarded an award and they send you the contract. Metro itself is a party to some of the litigation around the nation, and there's already some measures in place that enjoin certain activities. But as to how this one was going to play out, we reached out to the Office of OHS and asked whether or not the HPC was considering applying or whether or not agencies, and I got what you heard here earlier from Allison's recap. So we halted our review of that one unless and until, we're having to prioritize, frankly. And so since we did not learn that anyone that's part of the COC was actually going to seek it, but we have undertaken those relationships as well, just so you're aware, working with our partners at MDHA and other members of the COC, where we can't be their lawyers, but we can provide some recommendations that their lawyers may accept or reject. So we just didn't get into the fine-tooth comb on that particular one in those conditions, to be candid with you. But that's our system we currently have in place.
All right, with that, thank you all very much. Apologize for the lateness, but this was a lot of very fruitful conversation and discussion today. So thanks everyone for leaning in. You have a good rest of the day.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.